I want you to see something. 'Cause this is very, very important. All you MAGAs and all you Republicans that say, "Oh, that we're better off with Trump." We have no, we have no health care. Well, at least Donald Trump hasn't even done a health care thing. We have no infrastructure. We have no child care. Housing is bad. Prices of food is bad. Gasoline is bad. And look at the money that this man has spent of your money, your taxpayers' money, on the most dumbest thing there is in the world. And yet you approve this man? I mean, that you approve of this man? It's ridiculous.
Hey there, friends. Last time we tallied up some costs from the Trump administration that Trump has been costing you, the Americans, so far. And a lot of comments were left. We're talking about thousands upon thousands of comments on my last video when we were talking about the cost of tariffs, the war in Iran, and of course, tourism. Now, a lot of those comments said, hey, Harry, there have to be more costs associated with the Trump administration so far. And you know what? After going through your thousands of comments, looking at thousands of data points, I have to say, you're right. And I decided to break it down into three other categories. DC projects for Trump so far, ice in the border, and energy leases. And we'll start off with the DC projects, and we'll start off with something that has been in the news a lot. We're talking about the DC reflection pool. Take a look here, reflection pool renovations. We're talking about $14.7 million. I'm not quite sure they really got their money's.
Now, this is $14.7 million. And you know who those $14.7 million went to? Most part of it? To one of his friends who owns a pool company. Who owns a pool company? A friend of him. A friend of his, I should say.
On that one. But of course, it's not just the reflecting pool in which there has been DC renovations. What else are we talking about here? Well, it all started off with the 2025 military parade. You thought that
$45 million on a parade that we don't even need. You can spend $2 or $3 million. $45 million parade. You still have homeless people in the streets, right? Veterans are not getting the care that they need, but he spends $45 million on this.
$0.7 million was a lot. How about this one? This was $45 million. Million dollars with an M. Now, of course, you would say, hey, you know what, $45 million if the American people wanted it. But did they think it was a good use of government funds? No. No, they didn't. We're talking about 60% of Americans who said that, in fact, it was not a good use of government funds on the military parade. Just 38% of Americans said that it was. Now, that's not the only poll that we know that what Trump is doing in Washington, D.C. ain't exactly the most popular when it comes to D.C. renovations, because, of course, there is that East Wing renovation. We're talking about that East Wing renovation. And here was a great poll from Quinnipiac. Tear down the East Wing and build a ballroom. Again, 60% of Americans oppose that idea. 60% of Americans, that support is way down there in the Potomac River. My goodness. Now, how much money? How much money? How much of this green stuff? How much of this green stuff did, in fact, that the ballroom actually cost? Well, when we're talking about, the government, we're talking about ballroom security. Ballroom project security. Now, I'm trying to count here. I don't think I quite have.
$307 million just to do that, or at least try to do that. And I hear all of you guys complaining, oh yeah, but when Barack Obama did this, he spent so much money. Taxpayer, no. Barack Obama, when he did the basketball court, that was privately funded. That's number one. And number two, he was adding to something that was already there. He was not tearing anything down to add something new. No, he did not. It was funded by private donations the same way this library was privately funded, in the same way that Donald Trump's library is going to be privately funded when he is no longer president of the United States.
$307 million. That's from the Washington Post. Ballroom project security costing $307 million with an M. Of course, this isn't the only project for Trump that necessarily hasn't gone the way that he would necessarily hope it would be. How about the Kennedy Center redesign? They put the name Trump Kennedy Center. Now the Trump name is off. Now the $257 million. And when you tally it all up, when you take all that do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and you put it all together, the total redesign, the cost of the DC renovations and parade, at least $624 million. That's the amount of green that the American people are out. Perhaps some of that green, in fact, went into the reflecting pool. But you see this million? That's actually, it seems like a lot, but it's just a few dollars. It's just a few dollars in the grand scheme of things when it comes to the federal government and Trump's projects. Because you think that $624 million is a lot? What about for the border wall? Now, I think a lot of Trump supporters would like this, but perhaps a lot of Americans wouldn't. Newly pledged border wall funding through 2029. This time it is billion with a B, not million, billion with a B. $46.5 billion. Now, there are a lot of people who are outside of this country who perhaps don't necessarily like the idea of that border wall going up. They don't feel so welcome. Now, again, a lot of Trump folks would support this border wall, but take a look here. Net international migration to the United States. In 2024, it was 2.7 million. Now, that number is way down there. Now, it's just 321,000. That's your 2026 outlook. Now, once you're here in the United States, right? If in fact you're here, you're not here legally, you might have ICE. Come after you. But a lot of Americans have turned against ICE. Yet despite that, the funding for ICE, way up. Look at this. Increased ICE funding through 2029. $113 billion. $113 billion at least. And you know what? It's not just those migration numbers that suggest that people aren't interested in moving here to the United States. It's in the polling data as well. Take a look here. Okay, want to move to the United States. Foreigners who want to move say that the U.S. is their top choice. Well, back 20 years ago, or so, a little bit less than 20 years ago, but the years, they go back so far, I kind of lose track a little bit. 24% said the U.S. was their top choice. Now, it's just 15%. And that is the lowest level ever polled by Gallup. Now,
It will be
I talked about the border wall funding, but in fact, there is more funding that has gone to immigration, more cost to Americans. How about this? Other immigration-related added costs, such as upping air response funding. At least 49 billion. Again, billion with a B. We're not talking millions anymore, we're talking billion. At least $49 billion pledged.
Now, let me ask you a question. $113 billion for ICE, $49 billion for other immigration. What has that done to the United States? Has it made you feel safer because there's less immigrants here? Is that it? Is that why you voted for Trump, for immigration, for illegals to get out, to bail them out? Does that change how you live? Does that change how the United States works? No, it does not change anything. You still have the same amount of crime because the president of the United States cannot control the crime. All right, those are state level. He can only do what he can do in federal. And jobs are missing. Farmers have lost their farmers are going bankrupt because they don't have these workers to work. And you guys are saying, oh, that Mexicans and Spanish people are taking over your jobs or whatever. So why haven't these jobs that have been taken away from these illegals that you so-called in the farming business have gone to white people? Or let's say they're American. They don't want to work it. They don't want to work it. By law, they have to offer those jobs first to the local people who are American people. But they don't want to choose to do it. So then you need immigration. You need those people with visas to work here. Those people with visas, they have taken them back. They deported them to their country. So I don't know what you guys voted for. It just makes no sense at all.
Mostly through 2029. Now, when you tally it all up, all of this new immigration funding, all of this new immigration cost, what are we talking about? We are talking about, get this, at least $257 $207 billion. This is all new Trump immigration funding, mostly through 2029. Now, of course, Trump ran and won on immigration back in 2024. So you might say, hey, you know what? The American people are for this. But look at Trump's popularity on immigration. It is going way down there into the Gulf of Mexico. Trump on immigration. Take a look. Trump's net approval on immigration. Back in January of 2025, plus 7 points. Now, woo! Minus 18 points. We're talking about, do the math with me quickly here, folks. 7, 18. That is a drop of 25 points on Trump's net approval on immigration. Now, I will say that math and all this stuff has definitely tired me out a little bit. So it's time for a little soda break. It's time for a little soda break, and we're going to do Mountain Dew Baja Cabo Citrus. Let's see. Refreshing. Refreshing. I needed that. Yeah. Anyway, as we enter the final stretch here, of course, we left one other thing. We were talking about energy projects. And what do we see? Okay, paid and canceled wind project leases. We're literally getting nothing out of this. We just paid to get out of it. 2.5 billion with a B. And the thing about wind projects, look at this. Put more emphasis on what energy type. 55% say wind. Natural gas comes in at 42%. And coal, which the Trump administration has been putting more funding into, look at that, just 23%. Just 23. So Trump is getting rid of something that is in fact quite popular.
Now, mind you, in a video, Donald Trump said that windmills are no good. They're killing birds. They do this, they do that. And then he put another video when he said that China has no windmill. They don't have it. But China is the producer of windmills, and they have 80%. They would have, I would say, the last thing I saw was 80% have windmill in their country. So what the hell is Donald Trump talking about? And even at 23% of coal, he has not helped the coal miners at all. None.
If we want to tally it all up, okay, we're going to tally it all up right here. We're talking about all the costs. We're going to talk about all the costs, and we got our calculator here. Okay, we got 624 million plus 207 billion plus 2.5 billion. That gets us to a total new cost of Trump's policies, cost to America, immigration, DC projects, and energy, $210 billion at least. But then, of course, we got to add in the total from last week. Which was 373. And where does that get us? Well, our trusty calculator says $583 billion.
Half a billion. Half $1 trillion.
Policies, cost to America, immigration, DC projects, energy, Iran war, tariffs, and tourism. Or about $4,325 per household. Woof. That is a lot of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do that we're talking about. And I think a lot of people think that this $583 billion could be spent in other places. So, what can it buy? Well, what can it buy in fund? $583 billion for the government over 1 year of Veterans Department funding over at the VA. Or, if we're talking about $4,325 per household, that could be about 2 months of housing for the typical household. And of course, we're in a housing crisis right now. So, when we're looking at all of this data, we're talking about 523, we're talking about $4,325 per household. I think a lot of Americans believe that it could be spent in a whole heck of a lot of places. So, if you like what you saw, if you like what we're talking about here, what I want you to do is I want you to read a comment, because if in fact there are more costs, and I bet if I dug a little bit deeper, we could find them. Leave a comment. I'll go look at those, because I'm always reading those comments.